The American Geophysical Union is an organization dedicated to promoting discovery in earth and space science. One of our core principles is adherence to the highest standards of ethical conduct. That's why we have formed a task force on scientific integrity and are soliciting member input to update and revise our existing policies. That's also why we are so pleased that NOAA has chosen AGU's fall meeting as the venue for releasing its own scientific integrity policy. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jane Lubchenco, Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and the Administrator of NOAA. Dr. Lubchenco.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am proud to announce the release of NOAA's policy on scientific integrity. I really appreciate AGU for providing such a great venue for us to roll out this landmark policy. I want to tell you a little bit about how the policy was developed and what it says, and then would obviously be happy to take your questions. The policy was developed from a deliberative and inclusive process that included employees and public input, and I think the policy really reflects the commitment of both NOAA and the Obama administration to do a number of things, to protect scientific findings from being suppressed, distorted, or altered, to strengthen science, and to encourage a culture of transparency. Science really underpins everything that we do at NOAA, our research, our services, and our stewardship. And scientific integrity underpins our ability to both produce and to use good science. The policy that we're releasing really reflects the commitment that I made when I first came to NOAA to strengthen science, to ensure that it's not misused or undermined, and to base decisions about policy or management on good science. So this scientific integrity policy is really about fostering an environment where science is encouraged, nurtured, respected, rewarded, and protected. Using input from NOAA's employees and our partners, members from the scientific community, this policy promotes a continuing culture of scientific excellence and transparency and integrity at NOAA. We believe it will help strengthen widespread confidence from scientists to decision makers to the general public in the quality, the validity, and the reliability of NOAA science. One of the main functions of our scientific integrity policy is really to commit to a culture of support for excellence, for what I believe are our principal scientific asset at NOAA, and that is our employees. This policy applies to everybody at NOAA, not just to scientists. It applies to political as well as career folks, anybody who does science, supervises it, assesses it, interprets it, communicates it. Scientists, their managers, and policymakers will all be governed by this policy, and each group commits to upholding the integrity of science at NOAA. To make sure that everyone understands what the policy says and has an ample opportunity to ask questions, we're going to be providing training to all employees who fall under the scope of the policy, and we'll provide information about the scientific integrity policy on the Scientific Integrity Commons website at NOAA. So what does the policy actually say? Well, it takes steps to ensure that NOAA will continue to produce science that the public can use and trust. It's been crafted to minimize the likelihood that science is misused, undermined, or misunderstood, to ensure that scientific practices comport with the highest standards of the scientific community, to minimize the likelihood of misconduct, and to have in place measures to deal with it should it happen, to protect whistleblowers, to enable policy and management decisions to be grounded in trustworthy data and science, to provide public confidence in data, analyses, syntheses, and results, and more broadly, just to foster an environment in which science is encouraged and nurtured and protected. NOAA encourages its scientists to engage with their peers in academic, industry, governmental, and non-governmental organizations by presenting their work at scientific meetings, by publishing their work in appropriate outlets, serving on editorial boards and on scientific and technological expert review panels, and actively participating in professional societies, national and international scientific advisory and science assessment bodies. And we support recognizing our employees through professional benefits, for example, with any honors or awards that their research and discovery warrants. Of interest to all of you, I'm sure, will be a new aspect of our policy that says that NOAA scientists may freely speak to the media and to the public about their work. They do not have to request permission from someone at NOAA to respond to your inquiries. NOAA scientists are free to present viewpoints that extend beyond their scientific findings, but they must make it clear that they're presenting their own opinions. Appropriate disclaimers for use by NOAA scientists, if they're expressing their own personal opinions, will be posted on the Scientific Integrity Commons website. The policy ensures that selection and retention of scientists is based only on the candidate's integrity, knowledge, credentials, and experience that's relevant to the position. And in no circumstance will any NOAA official ask or direct federal scientists or other NOAA employees to suppress or alter their findings. The policy ensures that data and research used to support policy decisions undergo peer review where feasible, and NOAA will examine, track, resolve, and report all reasonable allegations of misconduct while ensuring that unwarranted allegations do not result in slander, libel, or damage to them. The policy extends whistleblower protections to those who report scientific and research misconduct and to those accused of research and scientific misconduct in the absence of a finding that such misconduct has occurred. It also sets procedures for resolving allegations of misconduct and consequences through the associated procedural handbook. And so in addition to releasing the formal policy today, we have a companion handbook that really describes in greater specificity exactly how the policy will be implemented. So I want to close simply by recognizing the very talented team of folks at NOAA who have been working on this scientific integrity policy for many, many, many months now, and for the extensive input and feedback and guidance that we have received from the scientific community at large, from many people who are probably likely attending the AGU meetings. The policy has benefited quite significantly from this iterative, intensive, deliberative, and inclusive process, and I believe will stand us in good stead as we look ahead to the future. So I'm really proud to have this policy. I think that it will continue to be refined as needed. I'm sure as we gain experience with it, there may be things that come to light. But I think we are in a good place with the policy. It's the first scientific integrity policy that NOAA has ever had, and I think it's appropriate that we have it. It's a living document and one that I think because of the extensive dialogue we've had within NOAA about it is one that has a lot of ownership within the organization and one that I believe will be durable. So those are the broad outlines of the policy. It gives you a sense of the diversity of issues that it covers, and I would be delighted to answer any questions that you have about it to the extent that I'm able.
Randy Shostak, reporter with EOS, newspaper of the American Geophysical Union. Dr. Lubchenco, thanks very much for providing this information. I wonder if you can provide an example or two of how, more specifically, this new scientific integrity policy actually will change how NOAA operates, providing, for instance, some historical perspective. How, for instance, as an example, might things have been handled differently, for instance, when the Deepwater Horizon event began and intensified, where there has been, for instance, some concern about lowballing estimates of amount of oil, overly optimistic statements about damage, and allowing BP to control access to some of the data. How might things be handled different now?
Randy, the policy is very clear about saying that NOAA scientists may speak freely to the media about their scientific findings without having to go to a public affairs officer and request permission. That was not true during Deepwater Horizon and would be a distinctly different set of circumstances than what has previously existed. I think that's one of the more obvious changes, but I think the policy does much more than that. I think in laying out clear expectations for those who set policy and management, that they are to base it, that they are to be, they may not alter, suppress, or distort findings, that there will be routine use of peer review, which has by and large been the case, but not always had to have been. And so now this is just making clear what is expected. I think we have clear whistleblower policies in place now that did not exist before. We have just clear expectations. One of the arenas that has been important to many NOAA scientists is their ability to participate actively in professional scientific societies and meetings. And this policy clarifies that we expect them to do that, and that it is appropriate for them to do so. So those are just some of the highlights, and I think there are a lot of other areas, but those are ones that are more obvious.
Hi, I'm Irene Klotz with Reuters and Discovery News. I have two questions. The first is, can you just comment a little bit about the context in which the need for a scientific integrity policy was adopted, in particular the email hacking incident of 3 years ago, and what kind of set a whole different tone of understanding, especially dissenting opinions. And then the second question is this policy going to be rolled out and adopted, as far as you know, into other U.S. federal agencies that handle scientific data, such as NASA? Thanks.
You may recall that when President Obama first took office, he made some very strong statements about restoring science to its rightful place. And on March 9th, he issued a directive to the heads of all the departments and agencies, laying out the principles that would guide scientific integrity in his administration. And he charged the President's science advisor, the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, John Holdren, with fleshing out those principles into more specific guidance for agencies. Dr. Holdren rolled those out last year, I think it was, and those are broad policies that apply to all of the agencies, and they say each agency now take this guidance and flesh it out in a way that is relevant and appropriate for your mission, because of course the missions of different agencies, departments vary considerably. Some other departments and agencies have released their scientific integrity policies. Most have not. They're still working on them. So the one that NOAA is rolling out today is ours, but it fits into this larger suite of actions that this administration has taken to protect science, to restore the integrity of science, to guard against misuse of science. So does that's the larger context that I think you were asking for.
Hi, Mark Fischetti at Scientific American. I'm just curious if you model policy after any other places in particular, or if you think your policy goes beyond what's in place at any other government agencies.
NOAA's policy is more specific in many regards, and I think really sets an... So NOAA's policy is more specific. It also differs in a number of important ways from other agencies' policies that have been released to date. We have not yet seen the full suite of policies. We have shared a lot of information across agencies, and I think that quite a few other agencies are looking to our policy as a nice model. And we had the luxury of having started early and worked very intensively with initially a small committee at NOAA, but then more and more of the organization. We had lots of comments on internal drafts. We posted a draft last summer for public comment. We got back thousands and thousands of comments from the public process. Rick, do you remember how many comments we got, or Craig? It was 17,000 comments. Over 17,000 comments we received from the public input to the draft. So it has had a lot of iteration and a lot of thought, and I think is much better for that.
I have a question from our webcast from Seth Bornstein of AP. It's a two-part question. How much of this year's $12 billion weather disasters would you attribute to climate change, if any? And then secondly, how would you not being allowed to have a climate service affect research into climate and preparedness for these extremes?
Okay, switching topics here. Today, NOAA announced that we are now up to 12, a new record for the number of extreme weather-related disasters in the United States that total at least $1 billion or more. The previous record was set in 2008, and it was 9 at least $1 billion disasters. This year, with the tornadoes, floods, heat waves, wildfires, droughts, and extreme blizzards, we now have 12 events that total at least $1 billion. I would note that we are still counting. We still have not done the final tallies on the Halloween extreme storm or on Tropical Storm Lee, both of which caused very extensive damage. So stay tuned for the final tallies that we will know as the end of the year gets closer and closer. Seth's question really goes to causality. I believe that there are probably 4 reasons why we are seeing a record in the number of at least $1 billion events this year. One is that there are more extreme events, period, but it's more complicated than that. A second reason is that there are more people. There are more, and they have more stuff. And there are both more, third is more people and more stuff in harm's way. So, for example, in coastal areas. And finally, more people have insurance for the kinds of things that were covered for those events. So I think that the existence of this new record reflects some elements of all of those. The report that was released recently by the IPCC on extreme events and climate change suggests that what we are seeing this year is not just an anomalous year, but a harbinger of things to come for at least a subset of those extreme events that we are tallying. Specifically, the heat waves, droughts, and extreme precipitation events, large-scale phenomena we are likely to see more and more of down the road as climate continues to change. But I would also note that the connection between climate change and the very small-scale events, like an intense, very localized hail event or tornadoes, is less well understood. I think many scientists believe that there probably is a connection, but exactly the nature and the degree of that connection is still uncertain. Seth's second question went to the issue of a climate service at NOAA. So by way of an answer, let me just bring you all up to speed on what he's referring to. NOAA currently provides climate science and climate services, and we are required to do so by congressional action. The way we do that is to integrate different parts of NOAA. 3 different management units of NOAA now currently contribute to that science service delivery. And we had proposed, as part of the President's FY12 budget, to do a budget-neutral reorganization of people within NOAA to pull folks from those 3 different management units into a new management unit called the Climate Service, somewhat analogous to the Weather Service. And this was part of the President's FY12 budget proposal. When we received the budget that was approved for FY12 from Congress, it did not include the permission that we need from Congress to do this budget-neutral reorganization. And so the end result of that is that we will not be reorganizing. We will continue to operate within the current management structure, but we will also continue to do the climate science and the provision of climate services like we already do now. The unfortunate thing is that with more and more extreme events, we are being requested with increasing frequency by emergency managers, by citizens, by the business community, by farmers. More and more people are asking for more information about climate scale events, which we define as anything beyond 14 days. So when we do an outlook that says floods, what the flood outlook is going to be for the next few months, or the drought outlook for the next few months, that's a climate service. So we do that, we will continue to do that, but we will not be able to do it as efficiently or as effectively as we would like to because we were not able to reorganize.
I'm Harvey Leifert, freelance. Would NOAA consider a rule that would prohibit its scientists from agreeing to embargoes that are imposed by certain journals, not AGU I might add, which prohibits them from talking to reporters or anyone else really about their work before a day, time, hour that the journal says is okay?
I don't know the answer to that. It didn't come up, as far as I know, in our conversations. I know that a number of journals do have embargoes and abide by those embargoes, and that's what guides their policy. I mean, that's a policy that guides how they operate. But that certainly is not covered under our scientific integrity policy, and if that were proposed, I think we would have to take it under consideration, but I can't tell you now what the decision would be.
Robert Lee Holtz, The Wall Street Journal. If I understand this correctly, the new policy frees the agency's scientists to dissent and to speak their minds freely. I wonder how the new policy protects those dissenting scientists from reprisals under this or future administrations.
It is our intent, by making explicit that they are free to express their own opinions, that they not be penalized for doing so. There is language in both the policy itself and the handbook to help guard against that. I think it will be important for us to be vigilant and to stay on top of issues as they arise. I think we will be doing a yearly how did it work, what's working well, what do we need to improve, because this is an area that is so important to all of what we do. So we want to make sure that it's working and getting better.
Christina Reed, Discovery News. And if I may ask you to switch gears one more time, I was wondering if you could talk about the effect of the U.S. pullout from UNESCO and what it has on NOAA science, such as the collaboration on the tsunami warning system, and also on the integration of the use of flood forecasting with the DART program.
I don't really know. We're still in the process of trying to understand what the implications are, and we don't fully understand that. Obviously, a lot of the activities that we participate in are vitally important. We would like to continue to be actively engaged in many of those activities, and we're working closely with the State Department to really understand what the options are.
And the flood forecasting with the tsunami warning system, we heard in an earlier talk about how the tsunami warnings are often done in terms of meter heights because of the tide gauges there, but that the people's reactions tend to be better when it's done in terms of a flood forecasting model instead.
So I'm not quite sure what you're asking, and I didn't hear those conversations. So I'm happy to follow up with you, but
okay, thank you.
I don't quite know exactly how to answer because I'm not quite sure I understand.
Hi, Josh Fishman, Chronicle of Higher Education. Switching gears once again back to scientific integrity. How do you envision this new policy as extending any protections to the thousands of non-NOAA scientists who collaborate with NOAA scientists and use NOAA facilities such as ships and research stations?
The policy applies to employees of NOAA, and it's our expectation that others with whom we collaborate, be they academics in scientific, through cooperative institutes or others that we fund or partner with, will abide by similar policies of their own institutions. But the policy really is specifically for NOAA employees. We don't really have any authority over others. We just have expectations that we will all be abiding by very high standards. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody.